Authority simply means that someone has the power or right to be in charge of someone or something. When you have authority, it means you have the ability to make decisions or set rules or use your power to influence someone else. And when someone has authority over you, it means that they have the ability to do all that in a way that directly affects you. Why are we talking about this? Well, because the truth is, authority is something that we'll have to deal with our entire lives. And that's why we hope that by challenging how we think about authority now, we'll be better able to deal with people in charge of us both now and later. We all have so many reasons why it's hard to deal with authority, but I think one of the main reasons is we don't always trust the people in charge. We haven't had the best authority figures in our lives, and that makes the thought of being under authority forever feel scary. When they ask us to do things we know aren't right, when we see them do things we know aren't right, when they treat us unfairly based on our age or where we live or the color of our skin, when they hurt or threaten or abandon or abuse us. That's when having someone in charge doesn't feel so great. Before we go on, let me say this. If you're being hurt or abused by anyone in your life, that's wrong. There's no question about it. And speaking up is the best thing that you can do. The people in charge here, like your small group leaders, landing leaders, want to help you find the support that you need to make a change. So please know that this is a safe place to be able to speak up today. No matter what your relationship with authority is now, the reality is that at some point in all of our lives, we're gonna find ourselves dealing with some great people in charge and some not so great people in charge. And because of that, we have to ask ourselves this question: what do we do when we have to deal with bad authority? Thankfully, we're not the only ones in history who have struggled with feeling this way. Today, I wanna talk about a guy named David, who had to decide how to deal with an authority figure in his life who wasn't always great. You see, God had actually picked David to be the next king of Israel. That's pretty amazing, right? There was just one problem. There was already a king. He was named Saul, and he didn't want to give up his throne. In fact, Saul wanted to stay king so badly that he decided to try and kill David. Not the best use of his authority, if you ask me. When David found this out, he literally ran for his life, and that's where we pick things up. King Saul and his army had been chasing David around the land. And this time, they were going to get pretty close to actually finding him. David and his men must have known the army was coming because they decided to hide in a cave. Pretty soon, Saul and his army ended up walking right by the exact cave that David was hiding in. Saul himself even walked into the cave for a quick bathroom break. But of course, David's men encouraged him to use the opportunity to take Saul out. I mean, this was David's chance. Years of frustration and confusion had finally come down to this moment. Saul had been an awful authority in David's life, and now David finally had the chance to do something about it. One slash of a sword, and David's problems with Saul would be over. But look at what David decided to do instead. What? That's not how this was supposed to go down. This was supposed to be David's chance to finally get even, to right all the wrongs being done to him by a king who was in charge. But he let Saul go. I mean, Saul left the cave without ever even knowing that David was there. When David did something even more crazier next, he ran out after Saul and got his attention. He showed him a piece of cloth in his hand, and Saul knew that David had spared his life. And what David said next explained it all. David could have taken down Saul right then and there. And if we're being honest, he probably had a good reason to do it. But what David realized is that even though Saul was powerful, David still had some power of his own. He had the power to choose to be honorable. I love how in this moment David quoted a saying he had heard growing up: "From evil people come evil deeds." He basically said, "I'm not going to be one of those evil people, King Saul. You may be like that, but I'm not going to be." Saul may have been a killer, but David would not be. Saul may have been disrespectful, but David wouldn't stoop to his level. Saul may have been wrong and evil and deserving of dishonor, but David knew that in honoring Saul, David was ultimately honoring God. And the same thing goes for you and me. We can't choose what the authority figures in our lives will do. We can't decide when they're going to do the right thing and when they aren't. But we can honor God by choosing the best actions and responses to authority in our lives. We can choose to be honorable no matter what's going on around us. Their actions don't have to determine our response. Does that mean we always obey, always comply, always give in? Nope. David ran for his life. If he had obeyed, he would have died. He did decide, however, that no amount of Saul's evil could force him to do evil as well. It's worth it. He wouldn't be like the person he was running from. And you can always choose to be honorable as well. Now listen, I know that's easier said than done. I get this isn't going to be simple, but it's possible to be honorable even when the authority figures in our lives aren't acting all that honorable themselves. You can always choose to be honorable, but honoring someone doesn't mean we obey everything they say, agree with them, or even worship them. Honoring bad authority means choosing to be honorable in how we respond to them. And here's how we can do that. First, think about the way that you say things and how you say it. How do you talk to your authority and about your authority always matters. Don't raise your voice, don't get mean, and don't call them names. Choose your words wisely when you're talking with both to and about your authority in your life. It's okay to speak up when you feel you've been wronged, misunderstood, or disrespected. But as you speak up, remember to do it with respect. Second, remember they're human too. Our authority figures aren't perfect. Even the good ones. They're gonna mess up. They're gonna make mistakes and say and do things that they shouldn't. When this happens, we can choose to remember that they're just like us. They aren't going to get it right all the time. And instead of shutting down or blowing up when that happens, we can choose to honor them by giving them a chance to right their wrong or do better next time. After all, we want people to do that for us, right? And finally, do what's safe for you. Some of you might be in a situation where the person in charge of us is using their authority in a way that's dangerous or harmful to you. If that's you, I want you to know that I'm so sorry that you've been put in that situation. And I want you to know that sometimes being honorable means speaking up when you're not safe. When you're being hurt, abused, or asked to do something that isn't safe, being honorable means getting help. So if you're listening right now and you feel like you need to speak up about something, I want to encourage you to talk to your landing leader or a trusted adult today. They want to help you be honorable by doing what's safe for you. So until next week, guys, have a good week.